You know, I've always heard white vinegar removes rust really well. I've been using CLR to remove rust. So I want to do a comparison, 24-hour, leave and soak, to see which one works better. So I've put a bunch of nuts and bolts in the white vinegar. I put a nut, a rusty nut, in the CLR, and I'm gonna let them soak for 24 hours. And we're gonna come back and see which one removes the most rust. Just after a few hours, you could see when I move it around a little, you could see all that rust coming off, falling to the bottom. So it looks like it could be working. It currently looks like this. You can see it's pretty rusted. So we're gonna stick this in some CLR. Put a little bit in there. All right. And we're gonna stick this in there. We're gonna let it sit for 24 hours. We're gonna see, out of both of these, which one works better. So the one thing I'm noticing is in the CLR, I just see the nut. Don't see many bubbles, nothing's really attaching to it. Not sure if that matters or not, but you could just see it in there. Now in the white vinegar, it just continues to bubble up. So we're several hours into this soak. Vinegar is still bubbling. The CLR isn't really doing much that I can see. Okay, I see some rust floating to the top. So we're at about 15 hours. And I will say I can see the rust start to flake off of the CLR. So it's definitely working. The vinegar looks like it's the same thing. They're both working, but we still have a few more hours. So we'll keep it going. We'll dry them off. And then once we dry them off, we'll just give them a wipe down and see which is the better product. You ready? All right, so we've had these in here for 24 hours. I have the CLR right here. I have the nut for the CLR, and you can see the rust coming off, just shedding off of the nut from the CLR. And then I have the white vinegar, which smells terrible, but you can also see a ton of rust shedding off from here. Now that could have been loose rust, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take these out, and once we take these out, we're just gonna see, I'm gonna give them a nice gentle wipe, and we're gonna see which one takes the most rust off. So this is the CLR, and I'll show you a screenshot of before and after, but I can see right there where that rust is really coming right off. So if I just take this, kind of wipe it off here, let's see here. This is a nice little wipe. You'll see it's definitely loosened the rust off. It's definitely gotten a lot of the rust off. I could still see some on there, but it's pretty loose, which for just soaking it in there and wiping it off, that's not bad, especially if you have a ton of nuts and bolts. If I only had a few nuts and bolts, I would just run this through my wire brush, but rebuilding the Jeep, I have a bunch. Now let's see how much more of the rust it gets off when I just scrape it with the wire brush. Just a light scrape here. All right. There we go. All right, wow. So yeah, you could see that's pretty clean right there. If I kept scraping it, you can see that's where I didn't scrape it. But it does come off pretty easy. And you'll see that brings it right back there. So that's great. I actually have a nut in here we're going to do the same thing with. So let me just take these out. Okay. Put here. Whew. And you can see here, it's really taking this rust off as well. You can see it flaking off. Let me just grab this and give it a wipe here. See what I can get. So this is the white vinegar. This is actually almost, honestly, this is almost better than the CLR. If I just give this a wipe, it's getting those grooves here. Wow. Wow, so it took off. Wow, okay, so cool, check this out. It took off, it's taking off the rust quite well, but it also took off that layer of coating that this had on it as well. And you'll see right there, that line where I soaked it in, where it was in the vinegar. And then this is above where it was not in the vinegar. Okay. And you can see here, it's peeling that right off. Look at that. Let me just move this up some. You see? So this vinegar is some pretty strong stuff. You can see it peeling that coating right off. Look at that. Wow. See the rust just kind of bubbles up there. And it's in those grooves. So let me just hit this. With my wire brush. Whew, I will say this has got a little smell to it here. I feel like I'm dealing with pickles. I'm pickling some cucumbers. All right. So with a little scrape, and I could say that I would not have gotten near as clean if I didn't soak it in something. Now again, I probably would have used my drill if I just had one or two of these, but I have a couple of hundred bolts that are rusty that I want to clean up. But you could see the difference in the vinegar and the CLR. Let's dig down in here a little bit more and really get the rusted one. Okay, so we have this one. I don't see that much rust on this one actually. So let's just give it a nice wipe. And then I do have one last, oh wow. So this one I don't even have to. This one, I do not even have to brush. It just wiped right off. And this just had a little surface rust on it, but wow. Well, it came nice and clean. Look at that. And then, and you can see the difference here in the one I just wiped down compared to the one I didn't wipe down. So definitely a difference. And you can see where this just wants to come right off, even with my fingers right there, if I just get in the grooves. So I would say, and let's check out the last bolt, which was the most rusted. So this bolt was completely rusted. You can see it's pretty nasty. I'm just going to wipe this down. See that rust all over there. Give it a good wipe. Right, now this one definitely had a lot of rust, but it pulled it right down. I mean, it could use the scraping to get in there, but you could see it took a lot of that rust off. Now I'm just going to, real quick, give it a scrape. And even if you do have to scrape over a few of these, it's still not as intense as scraping the rust off without soaking it. I'll say that. I mean, I'm not scraping that hard. That's a pretty light scrape. So it definitely It definitely helps. All right, you can see it's just pulling that off in there. I see the parts that are shiny where the brush got into. Right, so it definitely loosens this rust up. I mean, quite a bit, and you'll see how rusty it is in there. Let me just, should probably have a pair of pliers here so I can actually hold this without scraping my hand. I just want to see how loose this is. All right. Now this one, so it definitely pulls the rust off of this. This looks like it might be able to use a little bit more soaking, but definitely took a lot of the rust off of this. This was fairly rusted. I'd soak this a little bit longer, and then I would just give this a scrape with a smaller brush and maybe hold it in my vise over there so I don't scrape my hands because it's such a tiny bolt. But big difference. I would say these two work just as well as the CLR and the white vinegar. I'd say they work about the same, if I'm being completely honest. Definitely not worth spending the extra money on the CLR. The white vinegar works great. It takes a lot of the rust off. It loosens it up. It's easier to get the rust off, and it also takes the coating off of this bolt. So be careful with that. But I would say that between the CLR and the white vinegar, it's an even match. I think it's an even match. They both work very well. I'd go with either one and just give it an overnight soak, and it'll make getting the rust off of your nuts and bolts or anything else you have a lot easier. So there you go, folks. If you want to save some money, try the white vinegar. If not, the CLR also works great. I'm going to soak these still a little bit more just because I don't have time right now to scrape them off, and I don't want to leave them out. But thanks for tuning in, and wait for the next video where we'll be rebuilding this power steering pump. Thanks, dudes. See you later.